Patty's doctor was telling him that he really needed to lose weight. Patty was insisting that he was a healthy weight, and the doctor was wrong. Doctor: when was the last time you saw your penis? Patty: it's been a while. Doctor: you really need to diet. Patty: what color is it now? A small guy gets sent to prison and meets his enormous cellmate. The big guy says, "Listen, boy, you and me, we're married now, so you want to be the husband or the wife?" Terrified, the little man stammers, If I have to, I guess I'll be the husband." The big guy grins and says, "Perfect. Now come here and suck your wife's dick." First-time grandparents go to visit the new baby. After traveling several hours, enjoying dinner, and meeting the baby, the grandparents decided to spend the night. The grandparents, being older, had trouble sleeping. The grandfather rolled over, tapped on the grandmother's shoulder, and asked, "Would you like to do some laundry?" This had been their code word for sex for many years. The grandmother was beside herself. "Here? In your child's and new grandchild's house? That's disgusting." The grandfather sighed and rolled over. After dozing off for a few hours, the grandmother woke up, tapped the grandfather on the shoulder, and said, "I think everyone else is asleep. We can do some laundry now." The grandfather yawned and replied, "Don't worry about that, dear. I just had a small load, so I did it by hand." Patty's wife had never had an orgasm, so they went to see the doctor. After some tests, the doctor said, "She's probably overheating during sex." Try using a fan, Patty. Too cheap to buy a fan, asked his mate to come over and wave a towel while they did the deed. 20 minutes later, still nothing. No orgasm. Finally, his mate says, "Tell you what, Patty, you wave the towel and I'll have a go." Patty agrees. Seconds later, his wife is screaming with pleasure, shaking the walls. Patty turns to his mate and nods proudly. "Now that is how you waft a f***ing towel." A Redditor dies and goes to heaven. St. Peter meets him at the pearly gates. "Welcome to heaven. I'm going to show you around. We have all of your favorite subreddits here, and you can go from place to place and enjoy them to your heart's content." Amazed, our Redditor goes to r/jokes and finds the funniest jokes he ever heard with no reposts. And the comments were even funnier. Next, St. Peter takes him over to r/food. St. Peter shows him all of the most amazing recipes he's ever seen and lets him eat as much as he wants. He never felt too full and was always satisfied. Finally, our Redditor decides he wants to go see r/politics. He runs towards it, yelling and excited to see what's in store in the heaven version of this sub. St. Peter grabs him by the arm and shakes his finger admonishingly at him. "Shh," he says. "Don't be too loud. r/politics thinks they're the only ones here." At a fancy party full of wealthy guests, the host showed off his latest creation. A giant tank filled with alligators, piranhas, and other deadly creatures. He announced, "If anyone is brave enough to swim across, I'll grant them 3 wishes." Everyone laughed, but no one dared to try. The party went on, until suddenly, splash! A man was thrashing through the water, swimming for his life. Somehow he made it to the other side in one piece. The host rushed over, impressed. "Incredible! You did it! Now tell me, what are your 3 wishes?" The man, dripping wet and furious, said, "First, hand me that shotgun. Second, give me those bullets. Third, point out the idiot who pushed me in." A guy goes to the supermarket and notices an attractive woman waving at him. She says hello. He's taken aback, unable to place where he knows her from. So he asks, "Do you know me?" She replies, "I think you're the father of one of my children." His mind races back to the only time he'd ever been unfaithful to his wife. Nervously, he blurts out, "My God, are you the stripper from my bachelor party?" The one on the pool table with all my buddies watching while your partner whipped me with wet celery? She looks him straight in the eye and says calmly, "No, I'm your son's teacher." One afternoon, the bartender was explaining the buffalo theory to his buddy. Here's how it went. Well, you see, it's like this. A herd of buffalo can only move as fast as the slowest buffalo. And when the herd is hunted, it is the slowest and weakest ones at the back that are killed first. This natural selection is good for the herd as a whole, because the general speed and health of the whole group keeps improving by the regular killing of the weakest members. In much the same way, the human brain can only operate as fast as the slowest brain cells. Excessive intake of alcohol, as we know, kills brain cells, but naturally it attacks the slowest and weakest brain cells first. In this way, regular consumption of beer eliminates the weaker brain cells, making the brain a faster and more efficient machine. That's why you always feel smarter after a few beers. Johnny, a 15-year-old boy, and his father were wandering through a bustling mall. For them, this was a new experience, and they were amazed by almost everything they saw, from the glittering stores to the colorful displays. But one thing in particular caught their attention. Two shiny silver walls that seemed to move apart and then slide back together seamlessly. Johnny stared at the strange contraption and turned to his father. "What is that, Dad?" His father, who had never seen an elevator before, shook his head, equally baffled. "Son, I have no idea. I've never seen anything like it in my life." As they stood there in awe, a plump, elderly woman in a wheelchair approached the silver walls and pressed a button. With a soft chime, the walls slid open, revealing a small, empty room inside. The woman rolled herself into the room, and the walls closed behind her. Johnny and his father continued to watch intently as the small numbers above the walls began to light up in sequence. 1, 2, 3. Johnny counted under his breath as the numbers climbed higher and higher. When the sequence reached the last number, it paused briefly before the numbers began lighting up in reverse order. 3, 2, 1. With a soft chime, the walls opened again. But instead of the elderly woman in the wheelchair, out stepped a stunningly beautiful young woman who looked no older than 24. She glanced at the father and son, gave a small smile, and walked away gracefully. The father stood frozen, his jaw slightly open, eyes fixed on the young woman as she disappeared into the crowd. Finally, without looking away, he leaned toward his son and whispered, "Johnny, go get your mother." A young man starts his first day working at Walmart. His trainer says, "I'll handle the first 2 customers to show you how it's done, and then you can take care of the third." The trainer approaches the first customer and asks, "How can I help you today, ma'am?" She replies, "I'm looking for a garden hose." "Great. Would you like a 10, 20, or 30-foot hose?" 30 feet. He takes her to the aisle and then asks, "Since you'll be watering your lawn, would you be interested in a lawnmower?" "Why would I need a lawnmower?" "Well, once you water your grass, it's going to grow, and you'll need to cut it." "You know what? You're right, I do need a lawnmower." The new employee is impressed. The trainer moves on to the next customer and asks, "How can I assist you today, sir?" "I need some fertilizer." "No problem. Would you like a 10, 20, or 30-pound bag?" 20 pounds. After leading the customer to the right aisle, the trainer asks, "Since you'll be fertilizing your grass, would you also like a lawnmower?" "Why would I need a lawnmower?" "Well, once your grass grows nice and thick from the fertilizer, you'll need to cut it." "You know what? That makes sense. I'll take one." The new employee is in awe of the trainer's sales skills. Now it's his turn. He approaches a woman and asks, "Can I help you find something today?" She replies, "Yes, I need some tampons." "Sure. Would you like a 10, 20, or 30-pack?" 30-pack. He takes her to the right aisle, then asks, While you're here, would you like to buy a lawnmower? She looks at him, confused. Why on earth would I need a lawnmower? Well, your weekend's ruined anyway. Might as well cut the grass. A new retirement home opened up in the community with separate floors for men and women. After a few weeks, all the residents were called into the recreation room to go over the rules. One of the main points was that after hours there would be no men allowed on the women's floor, and no women allowed on the men's floor. Anyone caught breaking the rule would be fined $25 for the first offense, $50 for the second, and $100 for the third. A hand shot up from the back of the room, and a voice called out, "How much for a season pass?" Jack and Evelyn, a spirited older couple with a knack for wit, had just moved to Arizona, where everything, from the cacti to dreams of becoming a cowboy, seemed grander than life. Jack, long nurturing a fantasy of cowboy adventures, stumbled upon a pair of genuine leather boots on sale and couldn't resist. Beaming with excitement, he strutted home, the gleaming boots adding a swagger to his step. Stepping into the kitchen where Evelyn was pouring coffee, Jack puffed out his chest and asked, "Notice anything different about me?" Evelyn barely glanced up and returned to her coffee. "Not really," she said with a shrug. Determined to make an impression, Jack disappeared into the bedroom, stripped down to nothing but his brand-new boots, and reappeared striking a proud pose in the doorway. Hands on his hips, he announced, "How about now?" "Notice anything different?" Evelyn looked up, squinted briefly, and sighed. "Jack, if it was sagging yesterday, it's sagging today, and it'll be sagging tomorrow." Offended, Jack retorted, "Do you know why it's sagging, Evelyn?" Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Do tell." "It's sagging," Jack declared, "because it's staring at my new boots." Without skipping a beat, Evelyn replied with a deadpan expression, "Should have gone for the hat, Jack." Should have gone for the hat. A very modest man was in the hospital undergoing a series of tests, one of which left his digestive system in complete disarray. After several false alarms, he assumed the latest urge to go to the bathroom was another false call and decided to stay in bed. Unfortunately, he was wrong. He suddenly soiled the bed in a way that left him utterly mortified and unable to think clearly. In his panic, he leapt out of the bed, grabbed the soiled sheets, and hurled them out of the hospital window in a desperate attempt to rid himself of the evidence. Outside, an old drunk happened to be staggering by when the sheets landed squarely on him. Startled and confused, the man began yelling, cursing, and flailing his arms in a frantic attempt to get the mysterious, smelly attack off him. In the chaos, he managed to untangle himself, leaving the soiled sheets in a heap on the ground. As he stood there, swaying unsteadily and staring down at the mess in disbelief, a hospital security guard, who had witnessed the entire scene and was struggling to keep a straight face, approached him and asked, "What on earth is going on here?" The drunk, still staring at the pile of sheets, replied with wide-eyed sincerity, "I think I just beat the shit out of a ghost." I mowed the lawn today, and after finishing up, I sat down with a cold beer in hand. The day was absolutely beautiful, and the drink gave me the perfect excuse for some deep, uninterrupted thinking. As I sat there, my wife walked by and asked, "What are you doing?" "Nothing," I replied. Now, the reason I said nothing instead of just thinking is simple. If I had admitted to thinking, she would have followed up with, "Thinking about what?" And that would have led to a whole conversation about how men are, in fact, deep thinkers on a wide range of topics, something that often invites more questions than answers. Eventually, my thoughts wandered to one of life's great debates. Is giving birth more painful than getting kicked in the nuts? Women always insist that childbirth is far worse, but I can't help but wonder, how would they know? After another beer and a bit more deductive reasoning, I think I've cracked the code. Here's my conclusion. Getting kicked in the nuts is more painful than childbirth. Obviously, I have no first-hand experience of childbirth, but hear me out. A year or so after giving birth, many women say something like, it'd be nice to have another baby. But you will never hear a man say, I think I'd like another kick in the nuts. And with that, I rest my case. Time for another beer. Maybe a nap, too. A young banker decided it was time to upgrade his wardrobe and get his very first tailor-made suit. He went to the finest tailor in town, got measured, and a week later came back for his first fitting. As soon as he slipped on the suit, he looked sharp, like a man ready to take on Wall Street. Standing in front of the mirror, he admired the perfect fit, the crisp lines, and the confidence it gave him. But as he reached down to slide his hands into the pockets, he paused. There weren't any. Puzzled, he turned to the tailor and said, "Excuse me, but this suit doesn't have any pockets." The tailor raised an eyebrow and replied, "Didn't you tell me you were a banker?" The young man nodded. "Yes, I did." The tailor smiled and said, "Well then, who's ever heard of a banker with his hands in his own pockets?" On a transatlantic flight, a plane passes through a severe storm. The turbulence is awful, and things go from bad to worse when one wing is struck by lightning. One woman in particular loses it. Screaming, she stands up in the front of the plane. "I'm too young to die," she wails. Then she yells, "Well, if I'm going to die, I want my last minutes on Earth to be memorable." Is there anyone on this plane who can make me feel like a woman? For a moment, there is silence. Everyone has forgotten their own peril. They all stare, riveted, at the desperate woman in the front of the plane. Then a cowboy from Texas stands up in the rear of the plane. He is handsome, tall, well-built, with dark brown hair and hazel eyes. He starts to walk slowly up the aisle, unbuttoning his shirt, one button at a time. No one moves. He removes his shirt. Muscles ripple across his chest. She gasps. He whispers, "Iron this, then get me a beer."